I'm Tom Stewart, the Executive Director of the National Center for the Middle Market at the Fisher College of Business at The Ohio State University. With me today is Professor Peter Ward, a professor at the college and the author of a newly completed study of operational excellence in middle market companies, and indeed a comparison of middle market companies to larger companies in terms of operations. It's called the Operations Playbook. And Peter, let me begin by asking you whether top managers pay enough attention to operations.
No, they don't. They pay enough attention to operations results, but not enough attention to the operations themselves and the sort of processes that get us to the results that we want.
When you say results, you mean costs and defects and things like that?
Costs and defects and quantities produced, et cetera. So those data are available to executives who are running companies and who are interested in their operations. But what's rarer is a real understanding of the process by which all those products are made, those profits are generated. And I think that's the missing element.
So if I'm a senior executive, I can imagine it'd be very important for me to pay attention to customers and very important for me to pay attention to markets and so on and so forth. But what's the cost of this somewhat hands-off, just show me the numbers, I don't want to get too dirty with operations? This inattention, what's the cost of it?
Well, the nexus between the customers and the markets and the way we produce products for those customers and markets is sometimes obscured. More to the point, if we try to improve our operations and thus improve our operational performance, we count on executive leadership to provide the governance that's required to make that stuff stick.
So one of the things that provoked this study, I know, is your experience that companies undertake operational excellence improvements, the numbers get better, those data, whatever you're looking at, the defects go down, number of widgets produced per hour goes up, but then the changes don't stick.
Yeah, when we stop watching it, it tends to stop being as good as it was. And that's just a perennial problem in operations, and I think in many aspects of corporate life.
And let me clarify, this is across, I used a factory example, but when we're talking about operations, and we see the same sort of failure to sustain the gain, whether it's in the back office of an insurance company or in a hospital or in every aspect of business operations.
Absolutely. So when I say operations, I mean it in the broadest term.
In your survey for this study, you found some telling differences between large companies and smaller companies, mid-market companies, in terms of this problem-solving system.
Yeah, one thing we saw that was pretty striking is that there was much more emphasis on not covering up problems, of getting to the root cause of problems in mid-market companies as opposed to large companies. So again, I think what we saw was the fact that when the larger the bureaucracy, the more places to hide, and that middle market companies seem to be better able to come to grips with problems and work to get to the cause of those problems and try to eliminate causes.
On the other hand, you also found that middle market companies, when they had a problem and addressed it, were less likely to apply a consistent theory or method. They were sort of winging it or going to a more ad hoc set of solutions than big companies. Is that a fair description?
That's sure true. And I think one of the suggestions that we might have for middle market companies is a bit more reliance on Lean or Six Sigma or a body of knowledge that's out there that has been proven to be effective. Because what we have seen is that when middle market companies apply Lean or Six Sigma, they actually get more bang for the buck than bigger companies.
Why do they get more bang for the buck than bigger companies?
I think they're just more focused in their in their product offerings, and able to have cleaner lines of communication, and are able to actually get things done more quickly.
So you talked about the ways people measure operational improvement, and they talk, or the way they measure operations, and they measure it in terms of productivity, or they measure it in terms of defect rates. Is that the right way? When you look at middle-sized companies, One of the interesting data points in the survey to me was how many of those executives measure operational improvements in terms of customer satisfaction rather than just in terms of what's happening in the back room.
Yeah. Well, I think we all know, we all learned in business school that it's all about the customer. But I think what happens in large companies is we often get alienated from that customer because we have so many systems and so many layers between the customer and the production system. And in fact, it's the job of management to make sure that that operational system, although separate from the customer, is connected to what the customer's needs are. And I think we can just do a better job of that. It's an easier job in a middle market company than it would be in a very large company. So the problem that if I was giving advice to top managers in large companies, I'd tell them to be more like middle market companies in the sense that you be close to your customer. But when I'm talking to executives in middle market companies, what I would suggest is that they adopt some of the systematic approaches that we see adopted widely in large companies, and still keep that focus on that customer.
So a little more book learning in the middle market and a lot more customer focus in the large companies. Those two things might help drive the gears of this system so that it works more effectively.
Well, that's right. So I think that how you do both, in both cases, how you do it is you put that system in place. And I think those four parts, work pretty much anywhere. Those four parts of the system, they just are, and there's a lot of different ways to accomplish that. Each of the tasks that those subsystems have, but you've got to be doing it. You've got to be working on the people. You've got to be working on the strategy. You've got to have the problem solving in place, and you also, most importantly, I think most often neglected, is the daily management, and that's really the glue that makes this thing work.
And that's the stuff of the day-to-day work. At 9 o'clock I go around and I do this, and at 11 o'clock I do this, and we make sure that we have the stuff we're doing every day to make sure that we're just keeping a pulse on the operation.
And I'm making it visual, and I'm able to, so when I walk around, it's not just management by walking around, it's management by walking around with a real purpose, because I can see where how I'm doing. I'm keeping score, and I'm posting that score so that everybody can see it.